I turned 67 today, and I ate my birthday cake at my own kitchen table with the porch light off and the television on mute so the house felt steady, because noise can make a quiet room feel emptier than it is. I set one candle in a store-bought carrot cake, the kind with the thick cream on top and a paper label that curled at the corner, and I waited a moment before lighting it, not for anyone to walk in, just to be sure my hands were steady enough to make a clean flame. My phone buzzed near the plate. I don't keep many alerts on, but I still get the ones my children put into the world, because that's where they live most days. A new story popped up with Marcus's name on it. I tapped the circle and watched a bright restaurant table sway across my screen, the camera passing over drinks with slices of orange, a metal bucket of ice, and a big steak set down with a quick clap of hands from somebody off camera. "For Dad," Keisha said, laughing. The music was loud enough to bend the sound, and then the screen jumped to Tasha holding up a glass. "To the man who raised us right," she said, and everyone clinked. The caption read, "Celebrating Pops the proper way. Wish he could be here." I looked at the timestamp. They posted it 12 minutes earlier. The place was on the other side of the freeway, one of those mid-priced spots with parking in the back and a sign that tries to look older than it is. I've been there with them before. I sat still for a moment and checked my messages, scrolling slow, making sure I hadn't missed something. There was nothing for today except a morning text from Jordan that said, "You good, Dad?" and a thumbs up I'd sent back while making coffee. Another story rolled in, this one from Tasha. The three of them leaned across the table, shoulders touching, menus up like a little wall, faces tilted toward the lens. "Family first," she wrote, with a heart and a sparkle. A comment from one of her friends said, "So sweet, y'all always show up for him." Keisha replied, "He's old school, doesn't like going out," with a winking face. I cut a square from the cake. The knife left a neat line and the piece tipped forward onto the plate like it already wanted to go. I ate 2 bites and tasted the spice and a little too much sugar, and I let the sweetness sit there until it faded on its own. I lit the candle with a match I kept from the last time we grilled, and I watched the flame until it stood tall. I didn't make a wish. I leaned in and blew it out, one breath, clean, no sound. Then I put the phone face down, washed the knife, put the rest of the cake in a container, and set it in the refrigerator. I turned the porch light back on and locked the door. I have never needed a crowd to make a decision. I needed only one quiet night to see what was in front of me. Most mornings in my house start the same way, quiet, with the click of the coffee pot before the sun lifts high enough to make the blinds glow. I've been retired 7 years now, and routine is what keeps me level. I still wake up before 6, out of habit from driving trucks most of my life. I like those hours before the city wakes, when it's just the hum of the refrigerator, the smell of coffee, and the world still deciding what kind of day it's going to be. Back when Ruth was alive, she'd be up before me. She liked her toast light, her eggs soft, and she'd hum gospel songs low while she moved around the kitchen. After she passed, I learned the silence that comes after laughter can weigh heavier than you expect. It took me months to fill it again with something small and steady, the sound of the radio, a walk to the corner store, fixing things for the neighbors. My kids, Marcus, Tasha, and Jordan, they still come around, though not the way they used to when their mother was here. Ruth was the anchor. She made this house feel like a place people wanted to return to. She'd cook 2 meats on Sundays, even if only one of the kids said they were coming. She used to say, "Feed them enough and they'll remember where home is." I still cook on Sundays, just smaller portions now, and most weeks I end up packing leftovers. Marcus is the oldest. 40, with that kind of confidence that comes from always believing you're the one in charge. He sells houses now, likes to dress sharp, talks in slogans. "Presentation is everything, Pop," he says, even when he's talking about breakfast. He's the one who handles big family plans, which means he decides what we do and tells everyone else last minute. Tasha's my middle one, 37, works in HR at a big logistics company downtown. She's polite, careful with words, the type to send thank you texts instead of making calls. She means well but keeps score in her own quiet way. And Jordan, my youngest, he's 32, still trying to make music work. Plays keyboard for small shows around Atlanta. He's kind, still hugs like he did when he was a kid, but he follows Marcus's lead most times. I think he wants to keep peace more than he wants to stand up for himself. I don't interfere in their lives. I did my part, worked double shifts, kept the lights on, helped each of them get through college or trade school, whichever path they chose. Ruth and I always said our job was to give them a better start than we had. And we did. But what you can't teach is gratitude. That's something life has to hand them on its own, when the easy things start to slip away. A week before my birthday, life felt steady enough. The air had that spring weight to it, warm in the afternoon, cool at night. I'd been helping Deacon Harris fix the church benches, just tightening bolts and replacing some old boards. The pastor told me they'd dedicate one in Ruth's name. I didn't tell the kids yet. I figured I'd mention it when they came by. That Wednesday, Tasha stopped in after work, said she could only stay a minute. She stood at the door in her blazer, holding her phone like a shield. "Daddy, you got plans this weekend?" she asked. I said, "Just me and the grill." "You coming by?" She smiled, small and polite. "We might do something. You'll see." Then her phone buzzed and she was gone, saying she'd call later. The next day, Marcus called, talking fast like he always does. "Pop, you good for gas money for Jordan?" His gig got canceled. I said, "Your brother's a grown man. Let him call me himself." Marcus laughed. "You know how he is, doesn't want to bother you. Anyway, he's setting something up for the weekend. Just make sure you don't plan anything major." I asked, "What's the occasion?" He said, "Just trust me, Pop, we got you." I almost believed it. Almost. Friday night I got a text from Jordan. "What kind of cake do you like again?" "Carrot," I replied. He sent back a thumbs up emoji, nothing else. I figured they were putting something together. Maybe dinner here, maybe out somewhere. I didn't need much, just their time. That weekend came and went without another word. Saturday I mowed the lawn, cleaned the porch swing Ruth used to sit on, and baked a pan of cornbread because it made the house smell like the old days. Sunday I went to church, sat through the sermon about patience, shook hands, smiled. After service, folks asked what the kids had planned for my birthday. I said, "They're cooking up something special, I think." That night, nobody came. No call, no text, just the quiet creak of the old house and the hum of the fridge. I told myself they were busy, maybe saving it for next weekend. That's what I always did, make excuses for people I loved. The next morning, while washing dishes, I noticed my hands were slower than they used to be. Arthritis creeping up, same as my father had. He used to say, "Old bones don't complain, they just keep you honest." I smiled at that and kept drying plates. I didn't know then that honesty, the kind that shows you who your children really are, was already on its way to my doorstep. Monday morning came slow and plain. I swept the porch, watered Ruth's hydrangeas, and wiped down the mailbox because the pollen sits heavy in spring and turns everything the same color. I like starting a week with small jobs I can finish. It keeps the mind steady. After that I took a walk up to the corner store for bread and a newspaper. Mr. Patel asked what the kids had planned for my birthday, and I told him, "I'll find out when they're ready to tell me." He laughed and said, "Surprise is good at our age," and I nodded like I believed it. On the way back, I passed Tasha's car in my driveway. I didn't see her inside the house, so I went around to the side where the trash bins are. She was standing there with her phone in her hand, talking low. When she saw me, she straightened her shoulders and ended the call quick. "Daddy, I left my cardigan here yesterday," she said, like the words were already lined up. "Thought I'd grab it before work." I said, "Check the coat tree by the door." She stepped past me. Her phone screen lit up with a picture of the 3 kids I didn't recognize. Same faces, different background. For a second I saw a little banner across the top with the words "Family Only," then she turned the phone over like she was just remembering she had it. "You need anything from the store?" she asked. "I'm set," I said. Who are you on the phone with? Work, she said, too fast. Scheduling. I didn't ask anything else. I don't chase answers. People tell on themselves when they think you're not looking. She found the sweater, kissed my cheek, and said, "Don't forget to rest your knee." I watched her drive away and felt a small weight settle on my chest. It wasn't anger. It was the kind of feeling you get when you know a door is closing and you haven't decided whether to put your hand out or let it shut. That afternoon, Marcus called from his car. I know the sound because you can hear the turn signal underneath his voice. "Pop, quick thing," he said. "If anybody asks, you're not big on crowds lately, okay?" I said, "Who would be asking that?" "People," he said. "Just saying, you know how loud those places get." "I've been to loud places," I said. "Right," he said, like he was agreeing but not listening. "Anyway, you'll see." "You trust me, right?" "I trust what people do more than what they say," I said. He chuckled. "You always got a line ready, Pop. All right, I'll holler at you later." I hung up and stood at the sink with my hands in warm water, not washing anything, just feeling the heat work on my knuckles. Marcus likes control. He thinks persuasion is love. I used to let him believe that when it kept the peace. Ruth would squeeze my hand under the table and give me that look that meant let it go for now. Without her, I have to decide on my own where to draw a line and when. Tuesday, Jordan came by with his keyboard in the back seat. He said he had a rehearsal up the road and needed to borrow a stand I kept in the shed from when he was in high school band. We walked out back together. He was in one of those loose shirts he likes, hair pulled back, eyes tired. "You sleeping any?" I asked. "Trying," he said. "Gigs are weird right now. People want music but they don't want to pay on time." "You eat today?" "Not yet," he said, and I could hear the part of him that wanted me to offer and the part that didn't want to need it. "Go inside, get some leftovers," I said. "There's chicken and green beans. Don't leave me the dry pieces like last time." He laughed, then got quiet. "Dad, if something comes up Friday, you cool to chill at home?" "What kind of something?" "Just plans," he said. "We're trying to line it up right." "You talking about my birthday or a rehearsal?" I said. He looked at the ground. "Both, kind of." "Jordan," I said. "If you want to do something for me, show up and sit with me. I don't need a place with a valet." "I know," he said. I'm trying to keep everybody happy." "That job don't pay well," I said. He nodded, hugged me longer than usual, and went inside to make a plate. In the kitchen, he ate standing up like he was ready to leave at any moment. He asked me about a song I used to play in the car when he was little, and for a few minutes the years folded, and it felt easy again. Then his phone buzzed and he put the plate in the sink half full, said he had to run. "Thanks, Dad," he said, already moving. Wednesday morning, I was at the Union Hall for coffee. I still stop by once a week. Men who drove like I did sit at those tables, tell the same stories again with new details, and it makes the world make sense. Old Mr. Sloan read me a headline about delivery companies cutting routes and said, "Glad I'm out." I said, "Me too." On my way out, attorney Linda Pratt waved from a corner table with her files open. She helped a lot of us over the years with job disputes and retirement paperwork. "Harry," she said, "you still keeping that binder I set up for you?" "In the cabinet, where you told me," I said. "Good," she said. "People come asking for money more when you stop earning it. Keep your accounts clean." I nodded. It wasn't a warning. It was just a sentence I needed to hear out loud. Later that day, I got a message from an unknown number, a group thread I wasn't supposed to be in. It showed up because someone added my old landline contact by mistake, and that forwards to my cell now. The name at the top said Friday Plan. I clicked. A bubble from Keisha, "Let's split it 3 ways like we said." No extras. He usually covers when he's there. A bubble from Marcus, "Yeah, keep it tight. Pics only." We'll do something small with him later. A bubble from Tasha, got it. Jordan, cake flavor? Then a bubble from Jordan, carrot. I stared at the screen. I didn't type anything. I backed out and saved the number under wrong thread, not because I needed it later, but because I didn't want to delete what I'd seen and tell myself I made it up. I don't like to run hot on half information, but this wasn't half. It was enough to set a tone. That evening, Tasha called while I was folding towels. "Daddy, you good for Sunday?" she asked. "I'm good most Sundays," I said. "Okay," she said, "we might stop by after church, not sure yet." "Tell Nia I'll have her favorite tea," I said. "She reading that book I gave her?" "She is," Tasha said, voice softening. "She misses you." "I'm here," I said. She went quiet. "Okay. Love you." She hung up before I could ask anything else. Thursday, I changed the sheets, cleaned out the refrigerator, and put aside a small bag of items of Ruth's I'd been meaning to give Nia, recipe cards and a little measuring cup with a chip on the rim. I set them on the hall table. I thought about the times we all sat in this house when Ruth was sick. The kids showed up then. They carried groceries, took turns sleeping on the couch, and rubbed lotion on their mother's hands when the skin went dry. Grief can make people careful, but it fades, and character is what stays. I am not a man who forgets the good, but I don't ignore the rest to hold on to it. In the afternoon, I stepped out to trim the hedge and saw Marcus's SUV roll slow past the house. He didn't stop. He texted 2 minutes later, "You at home?" I wrote back, "Yes." He replied, "Cool," and nothing more. 15 minutes after that, a flyer from the restaurant across the freeway showed up in my mailbox. I don't believe in messages from the world, but I do believe in patterns. I tried calling Jordan that night. No answer. He sent a text, "In rehearsal." Then another, "You good?" I wrote, "Always," and set the phone down. Friday morning, I woke up before the alarm I don't set anymore. I made oatmeal, not because I wanted it, but because it fills you steady and keeps your hands busy. I checked the weather. I checked the mail. I checked the small notebook where I write payment dates and birthdays and the names of people who need prayer. I added patience next to all 3 of my children and underlined it once. I am not a preacher, but I know how to ask for what I need. Around noon, Tasha texted, "Daddy, if we do dinner next week instead, you okay?" I replied, "I'm okay most days." No dots appeared at the bottom of the screen. I set the phone on the counter and felt my jaw tighten then loosen. There are choices you make when you feel a sting. You can ask for explanations you already understand. Or you can wait and let people finish what they started. By late afternoon, the sun fell behind the big oak in front, and the porch got that shade it gets before evening. I sat on the steps and watched 2 boys race bikes up the sidewalk. The smaller one was losing and laughing anyway. Their mother yelled to be careful. The older one circled back and taught the younger how to push off without wobbling. It was a small thing, but it landed in me. Teaching costs time. Showing up costs time. Money is easy when you have it. Time is the real gift. I thought about how much time I had put into this family. I thought about how much I had let pass without saying what mattered to me. Then I stood up, went inside, and put a carrot cake in my grocery cart on the store app. I scheduled it for pickup. At 5, Jordan finally called. Music and talking in the background. "Dad, quick," he said. "You good tonight?" "I'm good," I said. "Play well." "We're not playing," he said, then caught himself. "I mean, we are, but it's a different kind of thing." "You with your brother and sister?" I asked. Silence. Then, "Yeah. I'll call you tomorrow." "All right," I said. "Be safe." He hung up. I stood in the middle of the kitchen and looked around at the house I built a life in. The walls don't talk, but they remember. They remember laughter and crying and apologies and all the days that had nothing special in them except that we shared them. I put a matchbox on the table, next to a single candle I had left from the last pack Ruth bought. I took out the good plate and set it down flat. I didn't say a word, but inside me a clock that had been running for years clicked into a new hour. Nothing dramatic happened that night before the posts went up. The sky got dark. A neighbor's car alarm chirped, then stopped. A siren went by, then the quiet returned. I warmed a plate of leftovers and turned on the ballgame without sound. With the room that still, you hear the little things, the fridge kick on, a floorboard settle, a branch tap the gutter. The house wasn't accusing anyone. It was telling me I had enough information to know what to do next. I didn't go looking for proof. Proof came to me, one favor, one pause, one quick call, one wrong text, one careful sentence at a time. That was enough. The rest would arrive on schedule, with glasses raised and cameras out. I decided I would meet it the same way I meet most things now, standing up, speaking little, and letting people show who they are. I didn't plan to check my phone that night. I was halfway through washing dishes when it buzzed across the counter. The sound was soft, like a reminder instead of a call for attention. I wiped my hands on a towel and glanced at the screen. The preview said, "Marcus tagged you in a post." For a second, I thought maybe they'd surprised me, maybe all that secrecy had led to something kind. I pressed the notification and waited for it to load. It opened to a photo. The three of them, Marcus, Tasha, and Jordan, sitting shoulder to shoulder at a polished restaurant table. In front of them were plates half eaten, wine glasses half full, and a little cake in the center with "Happy Birthday Pops" written in icing. Marcus had his arm draped across Tasha's chair, leaning in like a proud host. Tasha's head tilted toward him, her smile polite, practiced. Jordan looked relaxed, wearing the same shirt he'd worn when he stopped by earlier that week. Under the picture, the caption read, "Dinner for Dad, celebrating the man who taught us everything." I felt a slow warmth crawl up my neck, the kind that doesn't come from anger but from embarrassment that no one can see. The kind you feel when you realize everyone else has moved on to a different understanding of you. I scrolled down through the comments. "Ah, so sweet. Y'all are such a good family. He's lucky to have kids like you." And there, right under those words, Keisha had replied, "We tried to get him to come, but he likes to stay home these days." That was a lie wrapped in politeness. I've been to enough dinners with them to know I wasn't the one who stayed home. I was the one who paid. I clicked the next post, a short video from Tasha's page. She panned across the table, giggling, saying, "For Dad, wherever he is." Someone, sounded like Marcus, said, "He's probably watching the game," and they all laughed. The background music was loud and cheerful. The server brought out a dessert, the cake I saw earlier, with a sparkler stuck in it. "He would have loved this," Keisha shouted off camera. Jordan said, "He's with us in spirit." I stopped the video there. My reflection stared back from the dark phone screen, gray beard, deep lines, tired eyes. I set the phone down, washed the soap off my hands, and dried them slow. I've seen all kinds of selfishness in this world, men cheating on wives, brothers cheating brothers out of land, companies cheating workers out of time. But when your own blood treats you like an expense to avoid, that's a different kind of theft. They didn't take money from me that night. They took a seat that was mine by right. I didn't sleep much. The house was too still. Around midnight, I got up and walked through each room, living room, hallway, Ruth's sewing room, then the kitchen again. The walls felt closer somehow, like the house was waiting on me to respond. But I didn't speak. I've learned that silence can be sharper than any word you throw in anger. At 6:30, I made coffee and watched the sunrise through the blinds. Then I pulled open the drawer beside the stove and took out the little black notebook Ruth used to keep for bills and birthdays. I flipped past the lists of gifts she'd given the kids over the years, tuition checks, car repairs, down payments. I added one last line under the date, birthday dinner, uninvited. I don't write much these days, but I wrote that clear enough to read without glasses. The next morning, Tasha called. Her voice was light. "Hey, Daddy. You see our posts?" I did, I said. We wanted to surprise you. You know how busy things get. We figured we'd do something next week, just us. Just us? I asked. Yeah, she said quickly. You know, maybe a cookout at Marcus's place. He's got the big grill. There was a pause. You're not mad, are you? She asked. I'm old, I said, not mad. And I'm not surprised either. She laughed, a little too loud. Daddy, don't be like that. We were gonna bring you leftovers, but we figured you'd be asleep. I said, I was awake. The silence after that stretched. You could almost hear her realize she was talking to a man who already knew the truth. Okay, she said, her tone dropping low. We'll make it up to you. Promise. No need, I said. You already did what you meant to do. She exhaled through her nose. Fine, Daddy. You do you. Then she hung up. I sat there staring at the phone until the screen went black again. Around noon, Jordan texted, You mad? I wrote back, no. Just thinking. He didn't answer after that. Then, near sundown, Marcus called. His tone was all business, like he was checking in with a client. Pop, heard you caught feelings about last night. I didn't catch anything, I said. Didn't know there was something to catch. He chuckled. Man, you dramatic. It was just dinner. We said a toast, raised a glass, all love. You know how it is, we didn't want you driving out that far. I've driven farther for less, I said. Come on, Pop, don't twist it. You know money's tight right now. I said nothing. He kept talking, filling the silence. We were gonna take you somewhere next week, on us. Just needed a little breathing room. You know how these restaurants add up when you got 5, 6 plates. I said, You mean 4 plates? He stopped talking. I could hear the air conditioning hum through his phone. You being petty now, he said finally. I'm being precise, I said. There's a difference. He scoffed. Man, you too sensitive these days. I didn't answer. You still there? He asked. I am, I said. And I plan on staying here. Good, he said, trying to sound like he won something. We'll swing by this weekend. No need, I said. He sighed. Whatever you want, Pop. Then the line went dead. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the streetlights flicked on one by one. A couple walked their dog past my fence, talking low. Somewhere down the block, someone was grilling. The smell of charcoal and meat drifted through the air. I thought about how Ruth used to say that every family has a moment when the truth stops whispering and starts knocking. That night, I heard the knock clear. I didn't slam doors, didn't throw anything, didn't post a thing online. I made myself a sandwich, cleaned the counter, and went to bed early. But my mind was already working through something bigger, not revenge, not spite. Clarity. When morning came, I dressed in my cleanest shirt, the blue one Ruth liked, and drove to the Union Hall for coffee. Linda Pratt, my lawyer, was there again, same corner booth, same neat stack of files. She looked up and smiled. Morning, Harry. You look like a man with a decision. Something like that, I said. She motioned for me to sit. You bring your papers? Not yet. But I need to make some changes. She straightened her glasses. To the will? To everything tied to my name, I said. She nodded slow, that knowing kind of nod that doesn't ask for details. You want to talk numbers or principles first? Principles, I said. Numbers can wait. We spent an hour there. She opened her laptop, pulled up forms. I told her what I wanted, the house, my savings, the small life insurance policy, all of it going into a trust. I wanted Nia, my granddaughter, as the primary beneficiary. The rest, a scholarship fund in Ruth's name, run through the church. What about your kids? Linda asked. They'll get a fixed amount, I said. Not enough to argue over, not enough to pretend they earned it. She nodded again. I'll draft it today. You sure about this? I've never been more sure, I said. When I got home, I sat at the kitchen table and opened a photo album. I flipped through the pages, Ruth at the lake, the kids at Christmas, me in my old truck. Every picture was proof of effort. You could see the years stacked on top of each other like bricks in a wall, every dollar, every lesson, every promise kept. They took the wall for granted because they never had to build it. That evening, I went through the house and gathered every spare key. The one under the mat, the one in the drawer, the one Marcus kept for emergencies. I set them in a bowl by the door. Then I printed out my new bank statements and moved my accounts online to private access. The world doesn't change all at once, it changes in paperwork and passwords. Around 9, I sat outside on the porch. The night air was thick and heavy. I could hear music from somewhere down the street, someone celebrating something. I smiled a little, not because I was happy, but because I understood. People show who they are when there's something to celebrate. I checked my phone one last time before turning in. Marcus had posted another picture, a close-up of the cake from the night before. Caption, "To the man who made us who we are." I whispered, "That's the part that's true." Then I turned off the phone and set it face down. The next morning, I went back to Linda's office to sign the papers. The pen glided steady in my hand. Each signature felt like closing a door softly, no slam, no echo, just peace. When we finished, she said, "Anything else you want me to add?" "Yeah," I said. "Make sure the letters go out when I say so." She smiled faintly. "You've always been a man who likes things in order." "Order keeps people honest," I said. When I walked out of that office, the air felt cleaner. The sun hit the windshield just right, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel weighed down. I didn't need to raise my voice or demand apologies. My silence had done the work already. At a stoplight, I caught sight of my reflection again, older, lined, but calm. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. That's a stronger feeling than any revenge you could buy. By the time I got home, the phone was ringing again. Marcus, probably. Maybe Tasha. I didn't pick up. I let it ring until it stopped. Then I sat back, poured a cup of coffee, and watched the wind move the curtain beside Ruth's chair. It wasn't forgiveness I felt. It was balance. The next few days passed without noise, no calls, no visits. I didn't expect any. Guilt has a way of turning bold people quiet. I kept to my routines, but each one felt sharper now, more deliberate. I'd make my coffee, feed the stray cat that hung around the porch, and take slow walks past the same houses I'd passed for years. But I noticed things I'd never really paid attention to, the way Mr. Johnson's flag was always slightly tangled, the empty chair on Mrs. Carter's porch that hadn't been moved since her husband passed. You start to see the stories people don't tell. By Friday, the paperwork from Linda came back, neat and final. I signed every page twice to make sure there'd be no debate about my intent. She made certified copies and told me she'd handle the notices at the right time. I didn't need a big reveal. I needed something quieter, something that would sit in the background until the moment came. That weekend, I cleaned the house top to bottom. Ruth used to say, "If you're gonna move forward, make the space ready." I dusted the photo frames, wiped down the counters, and boxed up things that didn't serve a purpose anymore, old jackets, cracked cups, even a few gifts from the kids that had been more about convenience than care. When I was done, the house felt lighter, like it could breathe again. Saturday morning, the phone rang. It was Jordan. His voice was softer than usual. "Hey, Dad, you busy?" "Not much," I said. He hesitated. "Marcus wants to come by. Says we need to talk." I said, "He can come if he wants, but I'm not arguing." No arguing," Jordan said quickly. "He just feels bad." "Feeling bad doesn't fix anything," I said. "But come if you must." They showed up that afternoon, Marcus in his shiny SUV, Tasha in her work clothes, Jordan carrying a six-pack like peace offering. Keisha didn't come. I wasn't surprised. She doesn't do guilt, just excuses. When they walked in, the air felt crowded even before anyone spoke. Marcus started first, of course. "Pop, look, that dinner thing got blown out of proportion." I said, "It didn't get blown. It landed exactly where it was aimed." He laughed, forced. "You got jokes now?" "No jokes," I said. "Just truth." Tasha tried next. "Daddy, we didn't mean for it to look bad. We wanted to have a night together to plan something special for you." "Special?" I asked. "You mean posting me online like a fundraiser?" She sighed. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" No one answered. Jordan spoke last. "Dad, I didn't think it'd go that way. I just went because they said we'd surprise you later." I nodded. "And later never came." Marcus exhaled loud, hands on his hips. "So what now? You cutting us off?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I'm not cutting anyone off. I'm just making sure people get what they've earned." That quiet hit the room hard. Tasha looked away. Jordan stared at the floor. Marcus frowned. "You being dramatic again, Pop. You always think everything's some kind of lesson." I said, "Life is a lesson. But some of y'all stopped showing up to class." He shook his head. "You know what? This is exactly why we didn't invite you. You turned everything into a sermon." I smiled slightly. "You call it a sermon. I call it memory." The silence stretched again. You could hear the hum of the fridge and the faint ticking of the wall clock. Tasha finally said, "We didn't mean to hurt you." "I believe that," I said. "You didn't mean to. You just didn't care enough not to." They didn't have anything left to say after that. I told them there were envelopes on the dining table, one for each of them. "You can read them later," I said. "They're not for today's debate." Marcus reached for his but didn't open it. "You're not sick, are you?" he asked. "I'm fine," I said. "Healthier than I've been in years." Tasha's eyes softened. "What's in these letters?" "Instructions," I said. "You'll find out soon enough." Jordan nodded slowly, like he understood there was no use pushing. "You want me to mow the yard for you?" he asked quietly. "No," I said. "I already did it." They stood there a moment longer, waiting for something, maybe anger, maybe forgiveness, but I had neither left to give. Finally, Marcus shrugged. "All right then," he said, "if this is how you want to play it." "This isn't a game, son," I said. "It's an ending." They left a few minutes later, the sound of the door clicking shut echoing through the hall. I didn't watch them drive away. I just sat down at the table and took a breath that felt like it belonged to someone new. That night, I made a small dinner, baked fish, collard greens, and cornbread. Nothing fancy. I ate it in silence and thought about the kind of peace you can only find when you stop trying to fix people who don't want to be repaired. Sunday morning, I went to church. Pastor Ray's sermon was about sowing seeds and reaping truth. He said, "You don't have to tell folks you changed. They'll find out when they stop getting what they used to take for granted." I sat there and felt that one hit straight. After service, I spoke with him briefly, asked about setting up the scholarship in Ruth's name. "She'd like that," he said. "That woman fed half this congregation at one point." "Then let her keep feeding them," I said. He nodded and promised to connect me with the board. That evening, I called Nia, Tasha's daughter. She answered quick, cheerful as always. "Granddad, you see my science fair ribbon?" "I did," I said. "Your mama sent a picture. I'm proud of you." She giggled. "Mama says I'm just like you. I like fixing things." "Then don't let anybody break your spirit," I said. "Okay," she said, without knowing how heavy those words were. We talked about school and her favorite teacher. Before hanging up, I told her, I left something for you in my desk drawer. When you're older, ask your mama for it. What is it? She asked. Something that'll remind you how much you were loved, I said. After that call, I sat in my chair by the window for a long while. The sky turned pink and gold before fading into dark. That's the part of the day Ruth loved most. She'd sit beside me and hum under her breath. I missed that sound more than I could ever say. Monday morning, Linda called to confirm everything was filed. It's official, she said. The trust is active, the letters are notarized, and the accounts are secured. You did the right thing, Harry. I didn't do it to be right, I said. I did it to be done. She paused. That's the best reason there is. That afternoon, I put on my old Union jacket and drove downtown to drop off the signed scholarship paperwork at the church office. The secretary, Miss Diane, smiled and said Ruth would be proud. I hope so, I said. She always believed kindness should outlive the people who start it. When I got home, the house felt calm, not empty, just quiet in a way that makes sense. I brewed a cup of tea and sat on the porch watching the streetlights blink on one by one. Somewhere deep inside, something unclenched. That night, I slept better than I had in months. No tossing, no waking up to check the clock. Just peace. In the morning, I saw the first text come in. From Marcus, what the hell is this letter? Then another from Tasha, Daddy, you can't be serious about this trust thing. And one more from Jordan, I get it now, Dad. I really do. I didn't answer any of them. Because I didn't need to. By midweek, the quiet I'd earned began to echo in their world. It started with Marcus, because trouble always starts with the loudest one. He called 3 times that morning, left 2 voicemails, both full of disbelief instead of reflection. Pop, what's this nonsense about a trust? You moved the house? The church? You really freezing your own blood out? His words came sharp through the speaker, all pride and panic wrapped in one. I didn't answer. You don't need to argue with a man who's already proving your point. By the next day, I started hearing from other folks. Miss Jean from church said Tasha had called, asking questions about legal options. Miss Jean told her gently that you can't sue your way into someone's respect. I chuckled at that one. On Friday, Linda called to let me know she'd received follow-up inquiries from Marcus and Tasha. They're upset, she said evenly. They're surprised, I corrected. There's a difference. You want me to respond? Just with the facts, I said. No need to explain my feelings. They didn't ask about those when they made their plans. That weekend, I invited them all to stop by, said I had leftover cake. I figured if there was going to be a final word between us, it ought to happen face to face, while everyone was still pretending civility mattered. They showed up late Sunday afternoon. The sky was heavy with summer heat, the kind that makes the air hum. The table was set simple, paper plates, iced tea, and 1 carrot cake on a stand. 3 envelopes sat at each place. Marcus walked in first, scanning the table like it was a trap. What's this about? He asked. Tasha looked nervous. Jordan looked like a man stuck between guilt and loyalty. Sit down, I said. Eat if you're hungry. They sat, but nobody touched the food. Marcus grabbed his envelope. You really went through with this? I nodded. It's all legal, all final. I just wanted you to have copies for your records. Tasha opened hers and read the first few lines. Her face fell. Daddy, you left most of it to Nia? I left it to the future, I said. You had your chance at the present. Marcus threw his letter down. This is revenge, plain and simple. No, I said calmly. Revenge would have been public. This is private correction. You think this makes you noble, he said. I think it makes me honest, I replied. He stood up, pacing, jaw tight. You can't do this to us. I already did, I said. You did it first. I just signed the paperwork. Tasha started crying then, quiet at first. We didn't mean to hurt you, Daddy, she said. I know, I said. That's the saddest part, you didn't even think about me enough to mean it. Jordan kept his head down, hands folded. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. You're right, Dad. We messed up. We treated you like a bill instead of a man. I nodded once. You're the only one I believe means that. Marcus turned to leave. You'll regret this one day, Pop. I said, maybe. But at least I'll regret it in peace. They left one by one, the door shutting softly behind each of them. When the last car pulled out, I sat alone at the table. The carrot cake was untouched. I cut myself a slice, poured another glass of tea, and ate slow. The sweetness didn't sting this time. It tasted like closure. That evening, the calls started again, cousins, family friends, folks from church asking if it was true. Marcus had gone online, posting half the story. His version painted me as cold and ungrateful. My own father left me nothing, he wrote. Guess good deeds don't count for much. But here's the thing about truth, it doesn't need defending, only time. Within hours, people started commenting under his post, church members, neighbors, even a few old union men. They remembered every school payment, every bailout, every weekend barbecue I paid for without complaint. One of them wrote, Marcus, that man gave you a lifetime. If you lost his trust, that's on you. By Monday, the post was gone. That week, the house stayed quiet, but not lonely. Nia stopped by after school, bright and talkative, holding a small notebook. Mama's mad, she said, but I told her I wanted to see you anyway. I smiled. You're brave like your grandmother. She helped me organize Ruth's recipes and scanned some into the computer. When she finished, she said, Granddad, why do grown-ups make things so hard? I looked at her and said, because they forget what matters, baby. You just remember to show up for people while you still can. That night, I sat on the porch and watched her mother's car pull away, taillights fading down the street. I didn't feel pride or victory. I just felt calm. Sometimes the only justice a man needs is knowing the next generation might do better. The following Sunday, Pastor Ray mentioned Ruth's scholarship at the end of the service. He said, there's a new fund in honor of Sister Brooks for young women who serve their community with quiet hearts. The congregation clapped. I bowed my head. When I looked up, Tasha was sitting in the back row. She didn't say a word, but when our eyes met, she nodded, small, respectful. That was enough. I walked out of that church lighter than I'd walked in. The sun hit my shoulders warm, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a man waiting for an apology. I felt like a man who'd already moved on. The week after the letters, the house settled into a rhythm that felt natural again. I kept my mornings the same, coffee, a short prayer for patience, a slow walk past the oak that throws shade over the sidewalk, and a check on Ruth's hydrangeas. I fixed small things most people overlook, a loose hinge on the closet door, a cabinet handle with a wobble, the screen that never sat right in the kitchen window. When you start choosing peace, you notice the little repairs that help it stay. Nia came by 2 afternoons after school. She sat at the dining table with the notebook she carries everywhere and asked questions the way 14-year-olds do when they are honest and not trying to sound wise. Granddad, how much sugar was in Grandma's cornbread? Why did you keep every church program? What do you write in that small binder? I answered each one plain. I showed her Ruth's recipes and the notes in the margins where she changed things to fit what we had in the pantry. I showed Nia the scholarship paperwork and explained how the church board would pick students with a simple rule, effort and service. She smiled and said, Grandma would like that. I said, she would. On Thursday, I went to the Union Hall. The men there talk like clocks, steady, on the hour, same stories with new angles. Mr. Sloan clapped my shoulder and asked if I was sleeping better. I told him yes. He said, boundaries work like good fences. I nodded. We ate eggs that were a little dry and toast that needed more butter, and it still tasted right because the company was good. When I left, I felt grounded in the way you do when people who know your whole life see you clearly without asking for explanations. Pastor Ray called to schedule the first scholarship meeting. He said the board was grateful and already had 3 names in mind. I told him I wanted Nia to sit in on the meeting, not to decide anything, only to see how things move when grown-ups act like stewards instead of owners. He said that was a good idea. When I hung up, I thought about Ruth's kitchen table filled with girls from the church youth group, learning how to measure flour level and how to plan a meal for more people than you counted for. I did not get sad. I felt steady. Friday afternoon, Jordan came by alone. He knocked soft and waited on the porch with his hands in his pockets. I wanted to cut the back grass, he said. I know you said you did it, but I'd like to. I let him. He worked quiet, careful around the shrubs. When he was done, he came inside, drank water, and looked at the photographs on the wall. I didn't stand up for you, he said finally. I knew it was wrong and I just went along. I told him I appreciated the truth. He asked if there was anything I wanted from him. I said, just show up when you say you will. He nodded and said, okay. He left with a plate of leftovers and nothing more needed. Tasha sent a short text that evening, I'm thinking about things. Thank you for including Nia. I replied, do right by her and you'll be fine. There were no hearts or long messages after that. It was enough. Marcus stayed loud in other places, quiet with me. He drove by once and did not stop. He posted a picture of a house he sold and wrote a caption about hustle. I did not feel anger when I saw it. I felt distance. Some lessons come slow. Some do not arrive at all. Both truths can live in the same family. On Sunday, Pastor Ray announced the scholarship from the pulpit with the full name Ruth chose years ago when she talked about it at the Sink, a simple fund for young women who serve and study. The congregation clapped. A girl in the second row wiped her eyes. After service, Miss Diane shook my hand and said, you made something that will keep feeding people. I said, Ruth did. I signed the forms. We stood there for a moment in the hallway where the paint is always one coat short of finished. It looked fine to me. That afternoon, I grilled chicken on the back porch with 2 neighbors and their grandson who likes to talk about baseball. We ate off paper plates and joked about the Braves leaving men on base. It felt like a regular day. I washed the tongs and put away the charcoal and let the quiet settle. No one called to ask what I was doing or to ask for money. No one asked me to explain myself. I had done my explaining with actions. At night, I pulled out the small black notebook again and added a line, scholarship meeting set. Peace holds. I read the pages before bed, payments, birthdays, notes about the kids when they were small. There is a record of a life in simple entries if you keep one. I turned off the light and slept clean through. The next week, Nia and I sat at the church conference table while the board discussed applications. They asked good questions. They checked recommendations instead of assuming. One girl had been taking her grandmother to appointments all year and still kept her grades up. When the board agreed to pick her as the first recipient, Nia leaned toward me and whispered, Grandma would pick her. I said, so would I. On the way out, Nia squeezed my hand. That small gesture felt like a completion I had been waiting on without knowing it. Back home, I tightened the last loose screw in Ruth's sewing room chair and tested the seat. It held firm. That night I sat there a while, not to remember but to be present. I thought about the difference between being needed and being respected. For a long time I confused the two. The past month taught me to separate them. A few days later, I saw a brown envelope in the mailbox. Marcus had mailed back his house key with a short note, do what you want. I will, too. I put the key in the drawer with the others and left the note in the recycling bin. You cannot pull a man across a line he refuses to see. You can only keep your side of the line clean. When my next birthday came around, I didn't wait to see what anyone would post. I called the neighbors again, set out 3 chairs, and asked Nia to bring the notebook so we could finish labeling the recipes. We ate simple food and laughed about the time I burned a batch of biscuits and tried to blame the oven. As the sun dropped, Nia asked if she could read the scholarship thank you note the student had sent. She read it clear. It talked about gratitude and service and finishing what you start. I listened and felt the day land the way a day should, honest, even, complete. I washed the dishes. I turned off the porch light. I locked the door. The house was quiet, but it did not feel empty. It felt earned. When I was younger, I used to think silence meant weakness, that if you didn't fight back, people would keep walking over you. Took me most of a lifetime to learn that silence can be its own kind of power if you use it with purpose. See, I didn't rewrite that will out of anger. I did it out of clarity. My children forgot that love doesn't live in photos or captions, it lives in how you show up when nobody's looking. They thought leaving me out of a dinner saved them a little money. What they didn't see is that it cost them something far greater, my trust. I didn't shame them, didn't raise my voice, didn't seek revenge. I just acted the same way I always taught them to, with order, respect, and follow-through. Ruth used to say, if they don't hear your words, let them feel your absence. That's what this was. Absence with a purpose. Now my house is quiet, but it's not lonely. The next generation, my granddaughter, sits at my table learning about gratitude, service, and the value of showing up. That's how family continues, not through entitlement, but through earned connection. If you've ever felt forgotten by the same people you raised, don't let bitterness take your peace. Protect your dignity, protect your boundaries, and remember that silence can build stronger walls than anger ever will. I learned it the hard way. But I learned it in time. Would you have stayed silent like I did? Or would you have confronted them that night at the restaurant? Tell me in the comments, and if my story spoke to something in you, make sure you subscribe. I've got more truth to share, stories about love, loss, and the quiet kind of revenge that only life can teach you. Because sometimes, the best way to win is to stop playing their game entirely.